Okay, this school kind of looks nice. It looked like a school I remember going to, but not as a kid. It was like a gathering. I think it was a funeral. But yeah, use the schools for food and stuff. Inside was a long hall with different doors and a staircase on the side. It was shiny and dull, like it'd been cleaned so hard for so long it made everything even more worn down than normal. Poster boards with a bunch of paper sheets tacked on line the walls. Nobody was even looking at them. The messages they had might never have been read. The floors had a checkered tile pattern. Some of the kids around made sure to only walk on the one of the colors and avoid the other. And it was loud. There was too much sound from the crowds from the hall to hold. It echoed around, which made it even louder. This place was your school now. Hugh tapped your shoulder and pointed with his other hand. You figured that was his way to say you had to keep going without having to yell so you could hear. The three of you pressed past the other kids, making sure you didn't get separated. Step by step, you climbed upwards and forwards. Alton waved a hand towards the right door when you reached the top. You arrived for the first day of class right on time. The little bit of color you brought into the school on the tip of your nose and over your cheeks had finally drifted off your face. It was nice and warm when you went into the room. Your brand new class, 5th grade, room 24, smelled like people hard at work, cut construction paper, crayons, glue, anything could be made with that. There were tons of leaves stuck to the different color walls, climbing around the windows, hanging from shelves, and sneaking out from behind boards where some of those things could be made. Kids sat together in close groups. The desks were pushed up to make bigger tables. There was just one chair by itself right at the front, or the back if the way it was the front door. Tamarack took in a loud breath of waxy air. Wow, I thought it was gonna be ugly. Choices. Me too, but this is cool. It is ugly. Tamarack, why would you think that? My old school was better. It's good you were surprised, huh? It reminds me of you adorable. I guess it's not as bad as my last school. I don't even know what she felt in her old school. But I like to think if it's like dull for a 5th grader, then sure. So I'm gonna say I guess it's not as bad as my last school. This is the best school I've ever been to. Autumn shrugged his backpack off to the floor. When it hit the ground, a puff of air came out that not totally zipped top. Nothing in the place caught his eyes, in a good way or a bad one. It was like nothing around him existed. Q just watched you when Tamarack looked. He chuckled at the faces you both made. The classes looked the same for every room, in every grade, every year. Oh, it was that he couldn't see what you did. It was that he'd already seen it 110 times or more. Q knew school as well as he knew everything else in Golden Grove. He kicked his backpack behind him to be put against the wall, never glanced down. There was already a bunch of other bags there, set one by one along the far side of the room. They were almost completely hidden under a row of hooks that had coats and jackets and stuff clustered over them in stacked piles. There weren't enough holders for all the layers people brought. You're pretty lucky. This is your first time here, but you're only gonna have to do it once. We're gonna graduate and go to a different school next year. We'll all be new kids then. He talked. Gotta clean my eye. Not clean my eye. Get the lashes out of my eye. Anyway, he talked while he pulled his arms out of the jacket you always seen him wear so far. He tossed it on the top of a round lump of other coats with a hook somewhere below it. Oh crap. Did it again. I told you this place was weird and never changed. That make you at her. The sound was almost exactly like the noise his backpack made a minute ago. School is different than the entire town, Tamarack. Tamarack didn't say more words against that. She just got on her tiptoes to sling her untied scarf over Q's jacket, building the mountain of stuff on the one little hook even higher. Q shoved his bandana deep into his left pocket and lifted up his own shoulder. You're right, that class is always the same. Seeing Autumn without his fluffy jacket felt like something a lion without its mane. He folded his arms high across his chest and gazed upon what you were starting to get. Gaze. Okay, let me revise that. He folded his arms high across his chest and gazed upon what you were starting to get was his kingdom. He had all his pride of a lion even without the jacket. Though Q acted like that was it for getting ready, he hadn't gotten his gloves off. Was he gonna wear those to class? Tamarack held tight to the strap of her bag. It for sure wasn't going with the rest of the packs. That meant she was definitely already done with the putting your stuff away part of getting to school. Tamarack's overalls were the most over clothes she had once the scarf was off. The coat or a cool poncho or anything. The overalls were kind of short too. They didn't even cover her legs. Her ankles had long socks and yellow rubber rainbows to keep them warm, but you had to wonder if she didn't feel cold the same way most people did. Choices. You took off your sweater too. You left your stuff on. Well, I remember what I'm wearing, so it's okay. Not having your sweater on made you feel different. You weren't coming or going anywhere anymore. You were really staying there in that place for a lot of hours. But all you could do was find a hook pile to leave it behind on until later. Good morning and welcome, students. You glance over your shoulder. Oh, we finally got adults in here other than our mom. Cool. Awesome. In the open doorway was another new person for you to have to know. Her braids did match a few of the kids there, but she wasn't gonna be sitting in the desk with them. She was twice as tall as everybody else in the room. That had to be the teacher, Miss Murray. Her soft brown eyes looked down over you and your neighbors while she tapped a finger against her speckled face. The pattern on her skin was almost like stars, if the sky was light at night and the stars were the darker part. Her rosy pink lips parted into a smile. She inclined her chin towards Q. Nice to see you here, Mr. Q. This will be a good year. Yeah. Q stretched the word out as far as he could go, and at the same time he opened his arms wide. He turned his head way too. Sideways, I guess. He had the kind of tone your mom would have when she had old work friends over and they asked if they could set her up on a blind date. Whoa. squeakily cheerful and not real. He was trying to be nice but wasn't trying that hard. Though, when his eyes were rolling away, his gaze passed over you and got stuck there. A mischievous grin tugged the corners of his mouth as the sound of his voice went from off-key to chiming. Maybe. Miss Murray's pencil-pointed eyebrows lifted. She blinked one time, and then her eyes' smile grew. It was shared with you and Tamarack next. Hello, I'm your teacher, Miss Murray. Am I right to say that you're Tamarack, Bowman, and Amatashi Shaya? Choices. Yes, teacher. I'm Amatashi. Yes, I'm Miss Amatashi Shaya. Nice to meet you, Miss Murray. I'm Amatashi. Uh-huh. I'm Tamarack Bowman. You joked. Don't do that. She nodded. You nodded. She guessed right. You just stared at the grown-up talking to you. You looked at the ground without a word. We're gonna say, nice to meet you, Miss Murray. I'm Amatashi. Tamarack bobbed her hands in the air and twisted in place to swing her bag so that it hung behind her back. And I'm Tamarack. That is so great. Miss Murray spoke sweetly in a way that was just nice. It wasn't surprised or relieved to find out the answer. She probably didn't need to ask to know who you were. Teachers know a lot. If you'd be so kind, would you mind coming over to my desk over there in the far corner? I'd like to talk to you two before class begins. Okay. Please don't let it be anything weird or just straight up. I don't like some teachers will tell you to the side, like if there's something on you or something about you that's like they need to monitor for. Tamarack finally lowered her hand back down to her side. She still bumped her bag around by pushing it up and down with her butt. It cluttered loudly and Miss Murray pretended not to hear. Choices. Yes, teacher. What do you want to talk to us about? Well, don't talk too long. Wow. Did we do something wrong already? I can go too. What about you? You grabbed the side of Tamarack's overalls shyly. Is it important? You took a step closer, curious. You took a step away, nervous. I would just stepped up to her without saying a word, because that's how I would have been as a kid. Let's just say I can go to. Thank you, both of you. She gestured lightly with her hand for you to come and lift the doorway. I think I read that wrong. Q turned his head to follow the teacher. More and more of his dark hair eclipsed your view of the rest of him as she walked away. When you lost sight of his face, there has been a frown on it. After she was really gone, he swung back towards you and Tamarack. Alton was smirking then. Good luck out there. He tipped over on one foot and bent his body way down. All this on the 5th to 6th day? Literally a whole week of trying to record this, and apparently this is supposed to be an hour of recording. And I'm taking like 5 hours to do it. He tipped over on his foot and bent his body way down. His other leg kicked into the air. He could balance better than a flamingo. Alton flipped a hand under his jacket on the hook, and also under Tamarack's scarf, which was still on top of it, and dug around in the fabric. He didn't come out empty-handed. He got a hold of his favorite notebook and a pencil. Hugh slowly lifted his chest and brought his one hovering foot down to earth again. That whole thing was graceful, but he followed it by wildly waving his notebook goodbye at you. And a paper fell out when he did it. Ah! Tamarack squealed, trying to talk but too fast. Okay. Tamarack squealed, trying to talk, but too fast to none of it was real words. She reached her arms to Q gracefully, grasping, like she could pick him up and plant him back where he dropped his thing. That didn't work either. He stepped away on light feet, carefree, and joined up with one of the groups at a desk. They all raised their hands and waved when he arrived. He was gone, and the teacher was waiting. Tamarack squinted her dark red eyes slightly. She directed her gaze towards you because it wasn't like anyone else in the room could understand you. You gave her a look back. Choices: Q, you said with a smirk. Q, you said with a sigh. Not again. Scatterbrain, you said with a grin. Scatterbrain, you said with a grimace. Isn't he so funny? Isn't he so great? You stared at Tamarack in disbelief over that guy. You shook your head with a frown. You snickered. In disbelief over this guy. This is gonna be a long, however long it is. Choices: you picked up the paper and peeked at what it said. You picked up the paper and put it in your pocket without looking. You left it on the ground. Without looking at it, put it in our pocket because it's time for class to start. I think it's time to be peering and stuff. You made a beeline to the tan page on a dark blue carpet and snatched it off the ground before somebody could step on it, or it could blow away and get lost in the middle of the forest. You simply tucked it away. That was taken care of. Tamarack pretended to be a jack-in-the-box like she did yesterday. This time it was bending her knees before bouncing straight. Her fluffy locks of hair shook around her round cheeks. Come on, Emma Tashi. I almost said Emma Teresa. Emma Teresa. It's Emma Teresa. She skipped off to the teacher's desk all smiles. You caught up to her in time and walked the rest of the way side by side. Off in the corner of the other side of the room was the teacher's old dark brown desk. At least the very top of the wood was dark. The inner part was a lot lighter. You could see that from all the tiny cuts and scratches over the surface. It was as far away from the desk as it could be. You guess that was so she could have these kinds of talks without everybody else hearing the whole thing. Miss Murray didn't sit in the cool rolling chair that went behind the desk. She stayed in front and only leaned her back against the top edge. Miss Murray didn't sit in the cool rolling chair that went behind the desk. She stayed in the front and only leaned her back against the top edge. She got to talk to you and Tamarack gently because she didn't have to push her voice across a piece of furniture that separated students and teachers. I appreciate you coming to this meeting. I want to let you know a little about today, what you can expect from your first day. Why? Well, this class has a unique arrangement of the students, but you're the only two who have never attended this school before. Everyone else is simply returning after a summer break. I'd like to introduce you, darlings. I'd like to introduce you during roll call later. I want all the other kids to know who you are. Oh. Tamarack flicked at the buckles on her bag. They made a clicking sound when she hit them up and a thump when they landed back down. Her gaze moved around too. The meeting wasn't exciting anymore. Choices: you were with Tamarack. That wasn't a big deal. Your teacher was definitely smart. That would help a lot. You thought you were ready for school, but you weren't sure anymore. Having your own introduction made you feel special. It was gonna be so awkward, you knew it. You were just relieved it wasn't only you. Tamarack was getting it too. Let's see. It would help a lot, cause like we're just coming to school. We don't know nobody besides Q and Tamarack, so it's nice. You hadn't thought about how this room would know what to call you, and now you wouldn't have to go to everyone and tell them. Miss Murray smiled approving at how you and Tamarack handled that first assignment. I'll make sure it goes well. The teacher slid her hands across the desktop behind her and spread her fingers out wide. In a couple of minutes, I'll be telling the class to take their assigned seats. You'll have those spots for the rest of the year. I had a seat plan already, but there's a bit of a wiggly room to help you to get comfortable if you like. Tamarack's hands flew from her bag to her cheek. That sounded like a snack? I don't know. Does that mean me and Amatashi get to sit together? 'Cause we're neighbors and friends. Was she right? You held your breath and balled up your hands into fists, waiting to know if you get to be with Tamarack the whole year or not. A twinkle was in Miss Murray's eyes when she finally said what you were hoping for. You thought she must have paused on purpose to make it more dramatic. Yes, I can put you next to each other. Woohoo! It made Tamarack explode in celebration. She popped up on one foot, pulling the other up near her chest, and her arms went in the air. Amatashi, we're gonna sit together. Yeah. We're gonna we got something then. Everyone else? Choices. Any seat is okay. Can Tamarack and I sit with Q? Can I sit close to the front? Can I sit in the back of the class? No, we ain't doing that. Can I sit by a window? That'd be cool. But I don't like the cold air, so no. Can I sit away from the wall? I don't care what seat I have. I couldn't think of anything to say. Because one thing to sit by Tamarack, but the request to sit next to Q as well, he already has assigned seats with someone. But then again, had I kept my sweater on, I could have sat by the window. Well, now that that's in a thought, I'm gonna say, can I sit by the window? You can. Yay. Yeah, I want to sit by the window too. You can do that if you take the seat behind Amatashi. What? Huh? She's in shock. Why? For a second, the short girl was stunned, and then she was mad. Tamarack folded her arms huffily and angled her also short eyebrows as much as they could bend. Oh, she's angry. I don't want to be behind Amatashi. Why can't I have the seat that's next to Amatashi and the window seat? How are we gonna talk if all I can see is the back of her head? Because Amatashi already asked for the window seat. If you were right by Amatashi, you'd be further away from the window. It wouldn't be kind to make her give up her window seat so you can have both things. This is when it's good to compromise. Choices, right. You can't always get everything you want. Tamarack, oh, we ain't doing that. She can have it, you shrug. It's okay if she has it instead. Tamarack, if you really want it, then you can have the window seat. Sorry. You bit your lips nervously. Well, this is where the learning process begins because she's so close to the window and everything. I don't know if she'll actually focus. But with the seating arrangement, I guess I didn't think about it. How are we doing the seating arrangement? Because I can imagine things, which is cool, but it's like, how are we sitting? So if I'm next to the window, like how I'm seeing the picture right now, then if they move the seats in a certain way, it'll just be behind us. She'll be behind me. So she wants to talk, like face to face. Like, what if we need to do an assignment so bad, we can't just keep talking? I'm not thinking she's talkative, but I'm just like, if it's time to do work, it's time to do work. Being a friend is cool and all, but come on. She said it's a good time to compromise. So where would I sit if I give her the window? Or she won't object to me doing this. She just said she couldn't talk to me, but also couldn't be next to the window. So if I give her the seat, she'll be behind. I'll be behind her, right? Let's see. Let's say she can have it. I don't really care. Thank you. The whole room suddenly stopped. Everyone was frozen by the unexpected shout coming from the teacher's desk corner. Tamarack had a superpower. Yes, thank you very much, Amatashi. Not having the window seat wasn't the end of the world, but now you knew that it was. Oh, not was. But now you knew that if the Earth was in trouble, you might be able to have Tamarack stop the bad guys in their tracks with her scream. Oh, is Q next to us too? He's our neighbor. Miss Murray was a really proper lady from what you seen. She didn't have one wrinkle on her fancy suit, but creases suddenly appeared around her eyes and mouth after she heard that. The line spelled not again. Also, he's popular. No, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're getting along with Q, but there were students who wanted to sit next to him last year and didn't get to. It's their turn now. Aw. Her eyebrows went up so high you almost could have lost them. The many people wanted to sit by Q. Yeah, he's popular. It was kind of rude to the teacher, but you had to turn your head right around to look at the guy you've been talking about. He was leaning over a bunch of desks from before and still talking to those other kids you didn't know. There was a big smile on every face. He's very popular. You tilted your head back where it came, but not all the way. You only moved it enough to be looking to the side instead of Tamarack. Her gaze was directed straight at you, too. She gripped the strap of her bag that was weighing against her chest. Since the day you moved in, it had been just the three of you in your cul-de-sac, even if the day you moved in was yesterday. It was the same group, you, Tamarack, and Q, neighbors. But you weren't in the neighborhood anymore, on the outside of the street. Tamarack was exactly like you were, and Q wasn't. You and her were strangers in Golden Grove now. You didn't know people, and they didn't know you. Q had been there forever. So what I'm understanding is, when she said the outside world is not so, it's not, let's just say it's not safe. Is that also because, like now, she's not used to change. That's what it's looking like to me. So it's like she wanted to sit next to Q and sit next to Amatashi. Then it's just like she wanted that change to remain the same because she's comfortable and she feels free that way. That's why I feel like sitting next to the window is fine for her because she gotta stay next to nature. So anything that keeps her happy is what she wants, but not so much so that it's gonna be a burden. I don't care. Our character don't care. I don't care. As long as I can just chill afterwards. You and her were strangers. Oh, I read this already. My bad. And it wasn't only that. You already learned something on your first day of school. Q was popular. Choices. You were glad to have a friend like Tamarack even more. Someday you were going to be popular too. It didn't matter how many other kids like him. Q was your friend too. You weren't gonna let that change things. The three of you were still friends. That was too weird. Realizing that made you sad. Well, that was good for him. You wondered how you would fit in when you meet everyone else. Let's see. To be honest, Q is popular. There's leniency towards like friendship to the end kind of thing right now. The is looking at me. So I'm just, cause I don't really care, I didn't have that realization that I'm in a new school. I have no friends. None of that. I have a friend, but it wasn't like as tight knit as Tamarack want to be right now. That's probably why I still don't have that person as a friend. It was so easy. That ain't really making me choose because it's like I wish I had a child mindset to this, but also thank God I don't have it because it's like, dang, this is actually making me think. I'll say that's good for him because at the end of the day, we don't know how he got popular. It didn't matter to you, but it probably meant a lot to Q. Not looking at her didn't stop your teacher from trying to talk to you. So, Miss Murray had to wait for you and Tamarack to stop your shared stares of surprise, and then she pointed across the floor to a couple of desks near the back that were side by side. Cool. Those are yours. Tamarack is the closest to the wall, and Amatashi. Yours is on one next to that. It's the one next to that. Window seat, gotta sit at the window seat. Tamarack happily sung herself a simple song about her brand new desk. Besides the roll call, there won't be any surprises. It will be a regular, easy first day of class. Thank you for having a chat with me. You can take your seats. Tamarack's cheeks inflated and she pushed a smile between the two balls of air. Okay, let's go, Amatashi. Bye. The teacher stayed, resting up against her desk while you and Tamarack went towards your own seats. Tamarack, slow down with the reading, slow down with your eyes, slow down with your brain. It's okay. It's okay. Glasses are messed up, but it's okay. Tamarack sent quick, excited glances from the desk, then back to you over and over as you walked towards them. She chattered about how it was gonna be so fun being right next to each other and all the things she could do during the year. She beamed so excited it was like her sparkly golden hair made the sunshine that filled the room. A clap and a call came from where you just left. Attention students, class is starting. Take your seats. Just like she said she would, Miss Murray was beginning the lessons. You were right in front of your assigned group of desks when she said it. The red plastic chair Miss Murray had pointed out before was probably really old, but it was brand new to you. You pulled it out from the tables and gave sitting. What? You pulled it out from the tables and gave sitting in it a try. Okay. I've been looking at sitting is like it's mixing me up. Hard, cold, and slippery smooth, and the back part wasn't straight. It bent away from the bottom seat part. It felt like leaning against the top of a shiny slide of the playground. If you weren't paying attention, you might fall right off. Maybe that was the point. That was a way to keep kids focused. Tamarack was right there next to your left side, but the wall and the window just like she wanted. With the wall and window like she wanted. Past her, you could see the rustling treetops outside, with their golden fall leaves all bunched together. They kind of looked like Tamarack's puffy hair, but not as sparkly. She plopped her huge jingly pack on the desk. The actual bag barely fit, and she had to bundle up the strap on top so that it wasn't sneaking over into someone else's workspace. I really feel like my brain is replacing words right now. Because I see the words, but it's just replacing words. As if to make them better, I don't know. The tips of her rain boots were pressed against the dark blue carpet, and she tapped her heels together. It made the shoes squeak. She was excited for her own little place in the room. Amatashi, we're gonna be right here for the rest of the year. Yep, I've got the best the best seat neighbor. Tamarack patted her hands against the thick fabric of the bag and giggled in time with the hits. She stayed pretty busy making a beat. You glanced out at the room ahead of you, where the important boards and teacher were. Q was there too. Revive. You glanced out at the room ahead of you, where the important boards and teacher were. Q was there too, in the first row of the seats. It wasn't the same spot he'd been in before when you saw him talking to some people, but those other classmates he was sitting with were just as happy to have him there. He was hanging one of his arms across the top edge of his chair and was settled in so snugly he looked like a heavy blanket that had been thrown over it. He moved his head to the side to the rest of his cheek against the stretched out shoulder. Hugh somehow made himself sit even more relaxed. When that happened, he noticed you behind him. Alton firmly pressed down his eyebrows and pushed his mouth open a little. He wasn't there when you learned you and Tamarack would be together, and he wouldn't be there with you. Now he found out. He only looked that way long enough for him to notice that you had noticed his expression. Then your friend, house neighbor, and not seat neighbor lifted the corner of his mouth and sneakily waved his hand draped on the seat at you. Q's deep brown eyes gaze darted over to Miss Murray, directing your attention to her. His eyes kept moving right into a dramatic roll that went all the way around. It wasn't hard to imagine him saying "t-shirt, huh?" or something like that. For a minute, you could picture what it would have been like if he had been right next to you. But he couldn't face you forever. It was class time, and you were left staring at the tiny ponytail on the back of his head again. It was okay. You were close enough. Miss Murray patiently waited for people to get settled. Every seat had a kid in it, and final words were said before the room faded into a short silence. That's when things changed from you being just someone in some room to a teacher who had to listen to a lesson. Hello, class. Thank you for being here today. Welcome to your first day of 5th grade. She gave a round of applause. Normally, the people sitting and watching were the ones who clapped for the person standing in front. But you guessed Miss Murray did things differently. We're going to have a lot of fun this year, and you'll learn a lot too. But also, we're the big kids on campus now, so I'm counting on you to set a good example for the rest of the students here, alright? Yes, Miss Murray. Around half of the class answered her. Part was in a loud cheer and others were bored grumbles. The teacher accepted both moves warmly. Thank you. Let's start with a roll call then. She crossed past the desk to get a folder off the little cubbies in the corner. She got that and left her stiff brown jacket behind. The teacher flipped the folder open and she stepped back into the center spot. The cozy sweater made everything about her seem softer. Okay, little change. And she do have freckles everywhere. Okay, that's different. You know the story. I'm going to shout out everyone's name in alphabetical order. First name first. When I call your name, raise your hand and say, "Here, Miss Murray. I am so excited and happy to be at school with you today." Okay, wow. Just that first one, "Here, Miss Murray," is all we would say in school. We're not saying the rest of that stuff. That time, almost the whole class started to chatter. There were snickers shared between friends, whiny outcries of "we can't do that," and somebody even booed. "Okay, just here will work." "Yep, and now I know you're listening." Her soft voice had a jovial kick. She had fun with her job. "Let's begin. Her first, the first, yeah, your first name started with A. It probably wasn't gonna take long for her to be calling you. That was kind of cool. You got to be at the front of the line and wouldn't have to wait forever. And then you were next, and knew, not just 'cause she was on your first name letter, but because her keen eyes were on you before she even said anything. Amatashi Shaya." Okay. So she do first name, she don't do last name. That's different. Choices. Here. "I'm here, Miss Murray." "Hi, I'm Amatashi. I just moved here with my mom into a new house," and you went on like that for a minute. "No, we're not doing that. I'm not I'm not here, Miss Murray." "Here, Miss Murray. I am so excited and happy to be at the school with you today." "No." "Miss Teacher." "Yes, teacher, I'm here." Here." "No." You shyly, shakily raised your hand. You put your hand up without talking. You folded your arms and said nothing. You sunk lower in your chair and tried to pretend you didn't hear. You froze from the pressure. We just said here, but I don't remember ever raising our hand. But if we did, then it must have been a vague memory. So we're going to say here. Hush words spread through the cluster of other kids. Before you announced yourself, they had no idea you were a person who existed in the classroom. And something else I skipped too early. I'm just going to keep my finger on the space bar. The teacher gave her approval with a nod. You sat tall in your seat after a job well done. The roll call rolled on after your turn. "Kulin." Mr. Kulin didn't really raise his hand. He just popped a thumbs up from his laid-back lean. "Here, Miss Murray." That worked, though. Your teacher moved on. Tamarack Bowman. Tamarack's arm shot up in record time. It had already been wound up and ready for that moment. "I'm Tamarack. That's me." It was exactly what she was supposed to say, but Tamarack got an A for effort. It wasn't exactly what she was supposed to say, but Tamarack gets an A for effort. Miss Murray continued with the last of the names. Once every person in a stiff red seat had a turn to say they were there, Miss Murray gave you and Tamarack a real introduction to the class, the one she had warned you would be coming. It talked about how you just moved to town and what people were supposed to call you and everything. Miss Murray must have asked your mom and Tamarack, Ami, and Opa to know all that. You appreciate that she went to all the work so that other kids would know you. That was the end of the not really teaching us anything except names part of class. Miss Murray took a paper in the folder out of a flap and moved it over to the other side. "Please take out your pencils and notebooks now. I'll be going over our plans for the year and what will be expected of all my students." Your mom had packed a fresh notebook with perfectly smooth pages that didn't have a single smudge for you to use. You had grabbed something to mark it up if you needed to. It was choices: plain old pencil with a cute eraser on the end, pencil with a cool eraser on the end. Okay. Color pencil, pen, gel pen, glitter pen, crayon, marker. God, oh. I applaud. I'm going to say a cool eraser. You gripped it tight in your right hand. Tamarack leaned over her bag to be as close as possible. Her eyes were squinted and set right on Miss Murray. She started clicking her shoes together again even faster than before. If her legs beat any quicker, she might turn into a one-girl powered motor and drive the desk around the room. That'd be cool. Tamarack was definitely eager to get the information being told, but there wasn't a single piece of paper or pencil anywhere on her desk to take notes. Maybe she only had to listen to know. Over at the other group of tables, Q's face was pressed against his right fist that he had propped up against his desk. He was writing slow, lazy lines with his left hand in a plain spiral notebook. It wasn't his special one. That was your neighbor, and then there was you. Choices. Class was easy stuff, and you went along with it. It really was. That's all I had to do. School was so simple, you didn't need to even really think about it. You did your best to keep up as much as possible. You tried to follow along, but it was hard and didn't go that well. You didn't pay attention to the teacher. It was all dumb. You didn't pay attention to the teacher. You knew you couldn't do it anymore. Class was easy stuff because they literally had us copying and pasting at the end of the day. Miss Murray talked about the subject she'll be covering. Upcoming holidays and activities, the way students would get graded, school rules, and even more. You weren't sure she ever stopped having new things to tell everyone about up until the cut herself off. I don't know. She said something about when parent-teacher conference might happen and paused there. Q. You snuck a glance away from the front to him. You couldn't help it. He totally lost that droopy pose. Instead, Austin was hunched over a page. It was from his special notebook then, and he was scribbling in a hurry. Yeah? The answer was as breathy as ever. He didn't try to sound like a student being called out by a teacher. He was polite enough to pull himself up to look at the person speaking to him. Am I going too fast, or is there anything else I can do differently? You've been very uncomfortable. The pencil dropped and clattered on the desk. Both Q's hands covered over the piece of paper. He stared at it unsurely, as if he didn't know if it was suddenly too hot to touch or not. For a minute, Q didn't know what to do. He blinked and then he started to talk again, slowly, thoughtfully. No, it's all right. He leaned fully against his chair again and threaded his fingers together primly while placing them over the page. From your spot in the back, you could see the edge of an easy smile on the other side of his face. And even if you couldn't, you would have been able to hear the smirk in his voice. I wasn't writing down what you were talking about. I get to that later. Don't worry about it. Oh, what else were you doing? Eyes went wide as his boldness, and a few kids were brave enough themselves to giggle at Q's comeback. Miss Murray's usual smile was faint. But it was there. Yeah. Well, let me know if you change your mind. I will, thanks. So he's popular, and he's not a class clown, but it's giving, I don't know. Like, he's organized and he's not organized. He boldly said he was not writing down what she said. So is he expecting getting notes from someone else? Alright. She stopped the little break there and tapped her folder with the back of her hand to get the students' attention once more. Nothing but normal school stuff happened the rest of the time. It was a lot like your old classes in other places. Golden Grove didn't have a secret way of teaching kids that the rest of the country had never heard of. If you figured it would be that way, but seeing a regular lesson happen made it clear what you'd be dealing with. And like all the classes you had before, the one was over eventually. That one was over eventually, something like that. But before the teacher let everybody get up, Miss Murray went all around the room to drop piles of paper on a few different groups of desks. She explained how they were stacks of homework sheets and everyone had to take one, pack it with them, and bring it back finished tomorrow. So y'all in that packet learning thing too. Like, y'all don't stand up long enough to just teach. But if she did teach before she gave that packet, then cool. Because I learned that some teachers just give a packet because that's what the school wants. So the students can just do work and don't talk. So it's like they're eliminating noise and interaction amongst students. Because there are some that don't want to learn and some who do learn. Some act out of stress, some act out of attention seeking, and a whole lot of other stuff. So that would explain it. But this is different, cool. Then she said bye to the students and it was okay to leave. Dang, school over with just that quick? Felt like we just got here. Anyway, choices. It sounded like it was gonna be hard, so you didn't care that much. She was your new nemesis. Why? Miss Murray was pretty and smart. You liked her a lot. Out of all the teachers you had, she was the best so far. Out of all the teachers you had, she was the worst so far. Teachers all seemed the same to you. You were just glad to be out of class. She seemed alright. Maybe you had to warm up to her. Warm up. You have the whole school year to figure out how you feel about her. Right next to you, the spell that kept Tamarack totally locked on to Miss Murray during the class broke. The teacher went over to her desk and Tamarack turned to you. She stared at the pencil in your hand. Actually, it was the opposite. She was looking at the hand that was holding the pencil. I used my right hand too. We're the same again. Choices. Yeah, same hand. I saw Q using his left hand. You gave a thumbs up with your right hand. It doesn't matter, you know. You shrugged. You just shrugged. Thumbs up to encourage her. You put your hand to good use and made Tamarack giggle sweetly. And then Tamarack wasn't talking about hands anymore. That was finished according to her. This time it really was the pencil itself that had her attention. She poked it with a finger. I like your eraser. Does she have a hard time focusing? Choices. I like it too. I say I like yours too, but you don't have anything. I have more. You can borrow some sometime. Okay. Right. This is the best one I've got. I don't like it that much. It's all I had when I moved. You just nodded. That made you smile. So she wanted to talk. So you can pick one that showed that we're talking a lot. She can borrow some. Thank you, but how would I use it? Oh yeah, she didn't write in class. Maybe you could take it with you to use for homework. Maybe. Tamarack started to hum and get to work unbuckling the two front straps of her bag. Choices. Hey, how come you didn't write stuff down in class? That's a good question. You were really listening hard in class. You're probably gonna forget things since you didn't take notes. You quietly unzipped your own pack. It's a good question. How come you didn't write any stuff down? She simply kept tugging on the clasp to unlock them, carefree. I wouldn't read any of that. I wouldn't read any of that. The buckles clicked open. Huh? So what do you expect to do? She flipped the top flap over and went one of the homework packet. She flipped the top She flipped the top flap over and in went one of the homework packets. Okay, she puts it in double bag. That could have been double, but I like that they put more details in it. It's challenging me more because I don't use a lot of details anymore since high school. Closing it all back up followed right after. That was all she had to put away because she didn't take anything out of the bag for the whole class. She pulled the bag closer to her and wiggled herself into the trap. There was only one thing left before she was set. Tamarack bounced out of her chair and the heavy bag settled across her shoulder with a rattle. Come on, Amatashi. She made a dash to the coat rack where her pink scarf was waiting. Before leaving, you remembered to take the homework packet and tuck it away in the inner pocket of your bag. Nothing else was forgotten either. You put all your things back where you'd taken them from. You even brushed off the stray pencils, shavings, and eraser bits that had gotten on your side thanks to the other kids in your table group. The desk was all nice and clean when you finished. But as soon as you got up to leave, you couldn't call someone called for you. What? You couldn't help but hear someone calling you? Is what that was supposed to be? Hey, Amma! You checked behind you and there was Q, coming up from in front of the class. He was waving with a piece of tan brown lined paper in his hand. Choices, hi. Hey, ya Q. What's the paper for? Did you drop a paper again? You teased. You glared unwelcomingly. You gave a wave. You watched him walk over. Paper. Did you drop a piece of paper again? Amatashi, you are. He. They put the R funny, like it kind of ticked him off a little bit, but it doesn't show. That's good. So I'll reread that. Amatashi, you are funny, but you're almost to feel silly. But you're about to feel silly. But it's good you're here. I got stuff to say. Though I guess I could have told you even if you had gone. We live in the same neighborhood. Yeah. It sounded like even Q struggled to wrap his head around the idea that the two of you were strangers about a day ago, and now were people who were gonna be seeing each other all the time. There was a soft crackle as Q tapped the edge of his special paper against his right palm again and again. You stopped being able to hear it when Q started to fumble, though he kept doing it. Okay, so this paper. Here's what happened. I was talking to my mom and dad about it yesterday, back when it was still yesterday, and I realized something. He flapped both his arms out wide. Autumn was acting as blown away as he must have been when he first learned the thing he was trying to explain. Tamarack finding my paper and sending it to you wasn't just some unexpectable thing that we wondered about. It was something? Stickly? I don't know. What? It was? Yes. With drama and emotion, Q whipped his arms up and down in a rapid gesture. He needed you to feel what he was feeling, which turned out to be what he imagined he had been feeling before. You got a paper airplane with a message that had your name and everything. That's exciting. It had to mean something. But then it wasn't a message for you, it was an accident. Whoa, that's the biggest letdown I can even imagine. He had been flying the page around like it was another paper airplane, but he finally let it rest for a second when his arm dropped. All his bluster became only a sigh. If you were gonna get a note from me, it should have had something to say to you. That's what I thought of when I thought about it more. Oh, now I get it. Hmm? That wasn't the end of the story, though. It was a prologue. Autumn sprung back into action and raised his left arm with the page pressed against his thumb, and the rest of his outstretched fingers. And so, I got something for you. He shook the paper in his hand, grinning cheekily. There was no way not to get what he meant, and what was supposed to be for you. You wrote me a note. That's right. Autumn swished his paper one more time to bring it down low enough for you to take. You excitedly seized the note from his hand. The page in your fingers was exactly like what you remembered from the plain one, somehow tougher and softer than regular paper, and that same light brown color. But when you read the message, the words scribbled on it were all different than the first time. Welcome to the neighborhood. From Q this time actually. Welcome to the neighborhood. From Q this time actually. That's what was written in big clear letters. Stars and a smiley face crowded out any plain spot the words hadn't covered. It was carefully worked. The little extra line on the Q was a fancy curve, and he didn't even draw the stars from corner to corner. There weren't lines through the middle of them. The difference between a note Q wanted somebody to see and the one he got by accident was huge. Some blurry things came up past the top edge of the paper. You blinked distracted, then squinted over the page to figure out what was going on in the room. It was Q, high on his tiptoes. He was watching you read the note, smirking, hands tucked behind his back, and all around very pleased with himself. It's pretty good, huh? Choices, yeah, thank you a lot. No, it's great. Okay. Oh, thanks, you stammered shyly. You couldn't have come up with something better, you teased. I'll keep this forever. You silently vowed to treasure it. You smiled at him. You're really thoughtful, Autumn. I don't want it. This is a masterpiece. The drawings are so good. You stared blankly. It's a masterpiece. Q was already standing as tall as he could, but what you said still made him grow even bigger. His chest puffed out. That lopsided smile lifted out proudly. You got an eye for art, Emma. You gave one more glance at the message Q had written for you. It was still there. Welcome to your new neighborhood. Every time you saw it. When you looked at Q himself again, he finally dropped his feet and hands back to where they normally were. He waited there to see if you were gonna do anything else. Can we give him the note that we found? Choices. Is this what you were writing down in class? You really gotta focus on class stuff during class, even though the notes are cool. Q, were you okay before when the teacher picked on you? I hate the teacher call out people in front of the whole class like that Miss Murray did to you. I've been wondering, why do you wear your gloves inside the classroom? But you stood there quietly. Well, there's no option to give the note back. But we should be friends and tell him, yo, you gotta focus sometime. Even though notes are cool. Wow, that was creepy. You thought he'd think about your warning, or maybe a little mad you pointed it out, but it only made him snicker. You're one of those kids. What those kids? I just want to make sure my friends, since we're friends, have fun, but do what you gotta do. Choices. What is that supposed to mean? Which is a good question. If you mean a kid who cares about school, then yeah. If you mean someone who wants you to do good, then yeah. Take this seriously, Q. Is it bad to be one of those kids? Yes, I am. Whatever you mean. No, I am not. Whatever you mean. You tilted your head, uh, inexquisitely. Yeah, what do you mean? You're a schooly kid. But I don't mean it as an all bad thing. I'm just kind of surprised there's not a lot of kids who are one of those kids. And I like those kind of kids. You do. Hmm? He boldly pointed a finger in front of you. There's one of those kids I like right here. He, you giggle. You've been trying to give him important advice, and he's just been having fun and saying nice stuff about you. That's the kind of kid he was. Even though Q was the last one talking, he abruptly sliced a hand through the air to get what was the conversation out of the way and have it be something else, be about something else. But wait, before I forget, I gotta tell you, I'm impressed, Amatashi. The first day gotta be the hardest when you're new, and you didn't even break a sweat in class. No, because it's the usual. His hands were on his hip in a commending pose as he talked energetically. Nothing was held back. You didn't feel smaller next to his bright presence, and you didn't think that's what he was trying to do. My voice, oh my gosh, my voice. Gotta drink water. Running out of water. No! Q was starting to know you better, and it was making him look at you differently. You couldn't handle it. Choices. Thanks. What do you think? What do you think would happen? You asked confused. What do you think would happen? I die. You joke. I'm glad you were here. I've been to school before. It's no big deal. I did my best. You held up confident. Okay, sign. Okay. You press your mouth into a line. Uninterested. No big deal. But you never been to this school. I think it's cool that it's no big deal for you. He closed his eyes and snickered. While thinking some kind of thought, he stretched and curled his fingers to fill out the way his gloves were fitting. Q pinched at the edge to straighten them out better. Anyway, you and Tamarack are in the back next to each other, huh? Miss Murray is smart. Just sometimes smart. Sometimes too smart for me. What does that mean? Q, are you popular? It's so great that we're seat neighbors. It's pretty nice. The teacher said a bunch of people wanted to sit by you. You nodded along. You didn't have anything to say about that. We're not gonna question is he popular, even though he probably would have gave a good answer, since he always have an answer for most of those things. It seems cool. Okay, wait, what do you mean by she's smarter than that? Let's just say a lot of people wanted to sit by you. With a huge smile, Q swung his arms open wide. Yeah, of course they did. He acted like it was obvious, and it was and it kind of, kind of was. You already knew he was popular. The paper crinkled in your hand. You've been gripping it the whole time. You twisted around to pull the zip on your, you mean, you twisted away to pull on the zipper on your bag. The welcome message you got from Q went right into the packet of homework Miss Murray had given you. Q giving you a paper reminded you of the ones you could give to him. Tip. Choices. You gave him the paper airplane paper. You gave him the paper he dropped before class. You gave him the paper airplane English. You gave him the paper airplane paper and the page he dropped in class. So it's best to give him both. But will he lose it again? It's a good question. But you didn't think right then was a good time to do it. When are we gonna give it back to him actually? Let's just give him back the note that dropped out. To be honest. He dropped before class. Your bag was already open from putting away the newest paper, so you just stuck your hand into it again. The backpack couldn't be unzipped, all the way, or even would fall out. You only had a hole big enough for reaching around inside. Luckily, the paper from Q's special notebook wasn't anything like the homework from Miss Murray. You didn't have to look to you didn't have to look to know it. You could tell just by touching it. But you did have to worry about mixing up the pages that was yours to keep in the ones that wasn't. You had to stick your face against the cold, bumpy zipper, try to read which cotton Y paper you had before you were sure you'd gotten it right. Then you looked at Q again. You dropped this choices. You dropped this. Remember when I asked if you dropped that paper you gave me? You held the paper out to him. Remember? You didn't drop that one, but you did lose this. That's what you said when you held the paper out to him. It worked like a ticket to a time machine, 'cause you saw the exact same thing you did yesterday, with Q gasping, flailing his hands all of it. That's it, you. Both his hands smacked against his chest, pressing it back against his head. Shoulders and eyes jutted out in total shock. You got another one. He squished himself so much that the next question could only come out as a bashful peep. That's the paper from yesterday, right? The one Tamarack found? Wait, I was talking about the one that he dropped today. You glanced at the paper for a second and then back at Q. The side with the words was the one you had up. He could read at least some of the message, even if it was a little bent to your hand. But you guessed it was still a shot. Q didn't want to miss the tiny chance he hadn't been caught losing another piece of notebook. That was exactly what had happened, though. No, it's a different one. Yeah, looks like it. Then the stiffness melted away and Q stood evenly with his head high again. A grin grew too, same as flower after winter. You know, Emma, your sorcery amazes me. You and him broke out into laughter together. If you really were a sorcerer, you'd do a lot more than make Q lose his paper. But it was still a good joke. Q swept his left palm up towards you, kinda like how somebody might ask for a dance in a movie. He did fancy moves like that a lot. You placed the page right there like a paper for giving him a low five. Q crossed his right arm over to reach into the left pocket of his pants. Out came his well-worn notebook with the pages that barely stayed stuck together. So if we would have gave him both the pieces of paper, he probably would have been shocked. At this point, what's going through his head every time he loses a piece of paper from his special notebook? Because it can't be a coincidence. Maybe it'll talk about that as we go along the story. Q crossed his right arm over to reach out to the left pocket of his pants. Out came his well-worn notebook with the pages that barely stayed stuck inside. He does better on the second try. He flipped open with his thumb and positioned the missing paper squarely on top of the rest of the set. He ran his now empty fingers over the tattered side of the book, pressing the corners and edges that'd been sticking out mostly back into straight lines. Then Alton flicked his wrist to close the notebook, dropping it back into his pocket, and patted the side of his pants fondly. That's that. You did it. The page made it home. You know, Q shifted in his red sneakers, pinching his shoes and the back of his foot in and out. He wasn't going anywhere, but it looks like two caterpillars inching around on the floor. I got something I want to ask you about too. He drummed a few fingers past against the side of his face. You can do that. For as bold as Autumn had always been, as he was still trying to be, his choppy talking and even jerkier movement was a lot more uncomfortable than confident. What's with the bandage? You had it yesterday too. Did you get hurt before? Probably must have, right? 'Cause that's what bandages are for. Bench. Q bunched his eyebrows upwards and squeezed one eye closed. It was a wink, sort of, though it didn't feel fun or silly. Maybe he was the one hurt, and that's why he was wincing. Choices. Yeah, I got a cut. I kind of fell a lot. I'm pretty clumsy. You touched your bandage quietly. Nope, I didn't get hurt. I just like it. It's nothing. Were you worried? I lived dangerously. Actually, I'm okay. I thought it looked cool. I thought it looked nice. You only shrugged. Huh. I would have just said because of my glasses. Some things hurt. So, to liven things up, because he looked pretty serious about it, but I've been in a situation like that before. Not in the same context, but something similar. But at this point, he's the one concerned. So she's not clumsy. She didn't get cut there because that's literally on like the glasses. Where I hold my glasses. Let's just say, were you worried? Yeah, I say being hurt is a thing that's worrying. So now we can say, no, she didn't fall. Like it was obvious when she wanted to rush to him to say hello that morning. She did not fall. And I don't think he'll take kindly to saying it's nothing. Just for the sake of moving things along, we'll just say I'm pretty clumsy. Yeah. But, alright, Then I'll be there to help next time. That's all I needed to ask about it. It's done now. Thanks. Q didn't have anything else to say then. You could tell since he wasn't looking at you anymore. His gaze was on the move. He already seen everything there was to see in the class that looked like all the other classes. At least he thought so. But he did find something that needed his attention, in his mind anyway. Oh, she hasn't left earlier. She hasn't left either. Wait right here. I got another thing to do. Alright, walking neighbors. After cupping his hands around his mouth, Q called out past you all the way to the other side of the room. Hey Tamarack, get over here. You gotta see this. Okay. What is it? You have to look. Tamarack bounded across the room faster than an Olympic athlete. Probably. It would be close at least, cause she was really speedy. She did a skippy leap for the last foot before reaching you and Q and tossing her arm straight up as she struck the landing. The fringing strands of her pink scarf, which she had securely wrapped around her neck again, had flown up and almost tickled her nose. I'm here. Good. Check it out. Q waved urgently for her to come closer with one hand and reach in his right pocket with his other. That wasn't the side he kept the notebook in. He was going for something else. The two leaned in, having a one-on-one huddle. You weren't a part of it, but you could tell what he had by the little glimpse you could catch over his hunched shoulder and the sound of it. It rustled and crinkled. Not a sharp way like leaves, but in a soft, squishy way. Q was holding a weighted up bag. whatever that means, probably from whatever grocery store Golden Grove had. He kept the bag tightly closed, gripping two sides of the top and keeping his fists pressed together. Then he suspiciously looked side to side. No one else would be allowed to see the treasure hidden in his hand, I guess. Well, he's serious, so it's cool. Tamarack did it too after him, either to double check or not to be left out, or maybe because she didn't want to miss what he might be spotting. All right, this is it. Suspense pulled in your two neighbors. Tamarack bit the nail of her thumb and totally stopped breathing. There was nothing in the world for them right then except for the bag and whatever held in it. And finally, before Tamarack could fall over from no air, so she's suffocating. Q parted his hands and stretched open his unusual gift wrapping. Mouth open, eyes wide, Tamarack gasped down into the bag. Gawked down, I guess. You figured she'd go wow or something, but she just scanned whatever it was up and down with the same eager expression. It was possible she was so blown away her face had gotten stuck like that. That turned out not to be true, because she eventually saw enough for a reaction to slowly begin rumbling inside. First it was with the edges of her lips wobbling, then her eyelashes trembling, and finally her brows pinching furrowly. Tamarack snapped her head up and glared straight into Q's awaiting smirk. That's trash. Honestly, I don't even know what it is yet. Choices. Come on, it's not trash. Huh? What's in that bag? Q, what did you show Tamarack? Tamarack, what's that so mean to say about Q's stuff? Really? Oh boy, Q's up to something. Q sighed. He tried to get a peek at what was inside. What's inside the bag? What's inside the box? A tiny bubble of a snicker popped out from Q's mouth. Then there was another, even louder one. The laugh kept bursting bigger and bigger until he was shaking so bad that whatever was in the bag almost bounced out. It's trash. What? Yeah, it is. I said so. Being heard over Q's giggling fit could have been a problem, but Tamarack was entirely okay with shouting. Miss Murray looked over at the commotion from her fancy teacher's chair. She still had that folder with the roll call paper and class schedule open. Maybe there were no rules once class was out, or maybe this kind of thing was normal with her students because she didn't tell any of you to be quiet. Quiet down, whatever. She just went back to her job stuff. By the time you focus on your neighbors again, Q had started to calm down. Autumn shook his head and whipped a tear from the corner of his eye. Then, through heavy breaths, he gave a wisecracking answer. I didn't say this was something you want to have, just that you should see it. Why would I want to see your trash? She asked him crossly while crossing his arms to go with it. Q gathered the handles into one hand and swung his arm up near his chest so that the bag hung over his shoulder. The pose would have fit best for someone modeling a purse 5 times more expensive than any your mom owned. And she had really nice ones for work, not a plastic bag full of garbage. I have reasons. I've always got reasons. What are they? The question was caution, various of any other tricks Q might pull, but a curiosity was clear in his voice. Being presented a bag of garbage was okay as long as it had some of a secret. Well, he paused to rearrange his face into something more serious and nodded thoughtfully. Even though me losing that paper was an unexplainable mystery, I was thinking about how you just got to this town and are already having to pick up after other people to keep the forest clean. That's not fair. Still speaking as a wise mentor, Q used his other hand to gesture tellingly at the windows. So I decided to go back outside yesterday and check the forest for litter. This is all the stuff I got so far. He really did have his reasons, and it was exactly like he'd done with you and the note. Q imagined what Tamarack had probably thought or felt from what happened yesterday, and when it seemed like it could be sad, he did something about it. Tamarack sucked in a gasp of air and let it out as a squeal. Really? You cleaned the forest? I did. All this went from being on the ground into my trash bag. Wow, that's so nice. She said she did wow about it after all, and she also kicked her feet out one after the other in a happy little dance. Her bag jolted along with her move like a partner. It was your good idea first. That could have been humble, but he cocked his chin and grinned so pleased with himself that it wasn't really anymore. Tamarack was too giddy to care and notice. Thank you. Choices. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Doesn't everyone pick up trash when they see it? That was funny and thankful. Good job. No, funny and helpful. Good job. It was still really rude to do that. You were glad he treated her well, but you wanted to impress Tamarack too. Q was nice to you, but also to everybody else, but to everybody all the time. It made you feel a little bad. Why did you act like it was a huge deal if you knew it was trash? I can pick up trash too, you said to Tamarack. I can pick up trash too, you said to Q. I can pick up trash too, you said to both your neighbors. You smiled along with them. I'll say that's funny and helpful. Good job. You're welcome. The little trio of you, Tamarack and Q, stayed together, reunited over by the desk, while the room became more and more empty of everybody else. After a while, besides you three, there was only the teacher left in class. It was empty enough and quiet enough you could hear the doorknob twist and click. Click. That was all that happened though. You figured someone would come in. You checked behind you. You checked behind you. The door was open a crack and a person peeked through. From the teeny bit you could see, the person was a kid, or maybe a short grown-up. They were only half as tall as the door they were hiding behind. It definitely wasn't your mom coming to see you. Miss Murray was still flipping through a million papers, but she could call out from her desk. It's okay, you can come in, class is over. Then the door got shoved all the way open and bumped into the wall. After trying not to get noticed, being called out that way made whoever it was confident. So they were happy about it.